At the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to Brandon, a personal security guard who wakes up in a panic inside his trailer at the airport. He's just had a disturbing nightmare, a woman drowning in dark, swirling water, desperately clawing toward the surface. He doesn't know it yet, but that dream is less of a nightmare and more of a prophecy. Brandon rushes to get ready. Being late is simply not an option in his line of work. Meanwhile, across the airport, we meet Jed, relaxed, easygoing, waiting for his girlfriend with his best friend Kyle by his side. The two of them are buzzing with excitement because they've planned a getaway trip to a resort in Cabo. Sun, sand, no stress. The perfect escape. Then Ava arrives. Now here's the thing about Ava, she's not just any girl. Her father is a governor. A high-profile politician who barely lets her breathe without security nearby. And sure enough, she walks in and drops the news, Brandon is coming with them. Her father's orders. Jed isn't thrilled. Kyle thinks it's hilarious. And Brandon? He's already scanning the room, reading every stranger like an open book, calmly describing passers-by in precise detail. Their clothing, their behavior, their potential. Kyle is stunned. This guy is the real deal. On the other side of the airport, we are introduced to a wholesome little family, Marty and Hank, a retired couple collecting their luggage at the carousel, alongside their granddaughter Rosa, who is clutching her favorite teddy bear like it's the most precious thing in the world. Because to her, it is. Before they head to the gate, Marty breaks off from the group, she has something to take care of first. So Rosa walks with her grandfather, completely captivated by his old military stories. He's animated, expressive, painting pictures with his words. And Rosa? She's all ears. So distracted, in fact, that she doesn't notice when the teddy bear slips from her backpack and falls silently to the floor. Soon, everyone is moving toward boarding. Jed and Kyle are peppering Ava with questions about college, about her career choices, and she is not in the mood. She's walking, half listening, half regretting this whole trip already. Then she passes the teddy bear lying abandoned on the floor. She sees it. She hesitates. And she walks right past it. A few moments later, chaos. Rosa realizes the bear is gone. She panics and starts running back to find it, and in her rush, she collides directly into Ava. Coffee goes flying. Jacket ruined. And Ava, stressed, embarrassed, frustrated, snaps at the little girl harshly before Rosa bolts back to her grandfather in tears. But something shifts in Ava. Guilt has a way of doing that. She turns around, picks up the bear, and goes to find Rosa. When she hands it back, the little girl's face lights up completely. It's a small moment. But it matters more than anyone realizes yet. Hours later, the plane takes off. It's nearly empty, just a handful of passengers on a quiet midday flight. A flight attendant named Danilo charms little Rosa, talking about the big adventure her teddy bear is about to have. Kyle is already poking fun at everything and everyone, including the safety demonstration Danilo performs with practiced professionalism. Then Kyle starts planting seeds of doubt, whispering that the plane must have some kind of technical problem. Why else would it be so empty? Jed shuts him down calmly. Wrong time to travel. Airports will be packed soon enough. And for a moment, it really does feel like everything is fine. Then mild turbulence rolls through. Elderly Marty, seated near the window, watches carefully. Something catches her eye, birds. Too close to the engine. She watches as they disappear into the turbine in a sickening cluster. The plane shakes. The pilots hold steady. Danilo moves through the cabin, assuring everyone it's under control. Rosa presses her face to the window. And she sees the engine on fire. Everything that happens next is terrifyingly fast. The pilots are on the radio, urgency flooding their voices. Seat belts. Now. The crew rushes to receive emergency instructions. And then, the turbine explodes. A massive piece of metal tears through the aircraft's sidewall like paper. The hole it creates is enormous. The pressure difference is instant and violent. There, people, luggage, all of it screaming toward the gap. Passengers are ripped from their seats. The plane begins tearing itself apart mid-air, groaning and cracking with a sound that no one who survives will ever forget. Bodies. Chaos. Free fall. The plane hits the ocean. The impact is catastrophic. Most people don't survive the crash itself. Brandon, the man who trained his entire life to protect others, is impaled through the chest by a piece of metal debris on impact. The shockwave alone kills nearly everyone still seated. When the dust settles, or rather, when the water stills, Ava opens her eyes. She is alive. She looks around. Jed is alive. Danilo somehow survived in the crew cabin. And Kyle is alive, but his arm has been horrifically injured, a large section torn away during the crash. The sight is brutal. Here's where it gets even worse. The plane is sinking. Slowly, but surely. And it's wedged between underwater rocks, hundreds of meters below the surface. They are trapped inside what amounts to a metal coffin at the bottom of the ocean. Then, splashing from the water below. Voices. Brandon. Somehow, against every odd, Brandon is alive. And he didn't just save himself. He pulled Rosa and Marty to safety too. The security guard, bleeding, barely standing, yanks the metal fragment from his own body like a man operating on pure adrenaline and willpower. Danilo works to revive Marty, who was unresponsive. And then Rosa asks the question that breaks your heart, where's Grandpa? Brandon tells her gently. Hank didn't make it. Brandon takes charge immediately. He explains the situation with military clarity. They're inside an air pocket. The plane is wedged into rocks for now, buying them time. But oxygen is depleting. They have hours at most before the water swallows everything. Danilo checks the oxygen cylinders in the cabin, all empty. His colleague never replaced them when she was supposed to. But Marty remembers that one of the passengers had a personal medical oxygen tank. Brandon volunteers to retrieve it. Before diving into the flooded section, he assures the group he'll also treat Kyle's injuries when he returns. He disappears into the dark water. Down there, alone in the submerged corridors of a ruined aircraft, Brandon collects what he needs. Mission almost complete. He turns to swim back. He never sees the shark until it's already on him. The attack is explosive. Savage. And when Brandon surfaces back in the group space and passes over the oxygen tank, the look in his eyes says everything. He tells Ava quietly that she'll be on her own from here. That she'll need to keep going without him. Before anyone can react, he's pulled back beneath the water. Gone. The silence that follows is crushing. These people, strangers hours ago, are now completely alone. No rescuers. No signal. No Brandon. Marty, who spent years as a military paramedic, steps into the role of caregiver without hesitation. She asks Danilo to find the first aid kit, repositions Kyle's fractured bone, and bandages the wound with practiced, steady hands. There's something deeply moving about watching this grandmother operate under that kind of pressure. Outside, topside, the governor has deployed military search teams. Helicopters comb the ocean. But the plane has left almost no visible wreckage on the surface. Nobody knows where they are. Back inside, they do the math. Ava estimates for hours before the water fully overtakes them. Jed counters that the aluminum walls won't hold the pressure nearly that long. Then the plane shifts. It slides. Hundreds of meters. Grinding along the ocean floor before shuddering to a stop right at the edge of an enormous underwater cliff. An abyss. They have no idea how close to total freefall they just came. Now the group faces a brutal new problem. The water around the plane is turning red. The sharks have found the crash site. They're feeding on the bodies outside. Ava knows they can't just wait. The water is rising. The walls are groaning. They have to move. She proposes swimming out through the breach in the aircraft. Jed points out the obvious, the sharks are right there. Ava says they'll need a distraction. And then Rosa speaks up. She says sharks hate bubbles. Kyle dismisses her instantly, they shouldn't be taking survival advice from a child. But the idea quietly stays in the room. Someone else suggests the diving gear checked in by a pair of passengers who were on board. There might be oxygen tanks. Danilo explains the tanks would have been emptied before being loaded, airline safety protocol. But the masks and suits might still be useful. The team fans out to search the compartments. Meanwhile, Ava sneaks to the bathroom and lets herself fall apart for just a moment. She cries. Quietly. Alone. Because she's terrified and she doesn't know how to get everyone out of this alive. Back in the compartment, Jed and Kyle find a pair of swimming goggles and immediately break them by accident. It's almost darkly funny if the situation weren't so desperate. Then, a breakthrough. Military divers have located some debris on the surface. A helicopter deploys 2 soldiers underwater to investigate. They find the plane. The lights are still on. They approach carefully. Inside, Rosa spots them through the window. The group erupts. They're found. They're going home. One diver moves toward the breach in the hull. Nobody sees the shark coming until it's already too late. The diver is gone in seconds. His partner retreats. The helicopter, running low on fuel, is forced to call for backup and return to base. The survivors watch their rescue disappear into the dark water above them. Ava, refusing to give up, convinces Jed to help her retrieve the dead diver's oxygen tank. She can see it floating near the breach. They move carefully through the flooded corridor. Then Jed slips. He hits the water. The shark is on him almost instantly, and by the time Ava and Danilo drag him back, Jed has lost his leg below the knee. Marty fashions a tourniquet with a belt from the overhead compartment. When she tells Jed what's happened, that his leg is gone, his face changes. Not just from the pain, but because Jed's dream was to compete in triathlons. In one moment, that future has disappeared. Ava presses on. She grabs a flare and dives into the flooded baggage hold herself, finding the diver's case with diving equipment. An octopus startles her in the dark. She keeps moving. When she returns and they inventory what's available, the count comes up short. Enough equipment for 4 people. Kyle immediately says they can't take Jed, his condition is too critical, the journey too dangerous. Ava refuses to accept that. She begs Jed to hold on. She reminds him of a trip they were going to take to Alaska. She holds his hand. But Jed is already gone. When Marty quietly tells her, Ava's world collapses. First Brandon. Now Jed. The people she loved most on this trip, gone. And the walls are still closing in. Then the plane shifts again. The cockpit tears away from the fuselage completely and plunges into the abyss below. The water level spikes. Whatever time they had left, it just got cut in half. There's no more waiting. No more planning. They have to go. Now. The survival plan comes together quickly. They'll use their life vests to create bubbles around them, Rosa's idea, quietly vindicated, hoping the disturbance will disorient or repel the sharks long enough to reach the surface. 2 oxygen tanks between all of them. One stays with Rosa exclusively. The other is shared among the adults, rationed breath by breath. Kyle confesses something he's never told anyone. When he was a child, he sank to the bottom of a pool during an accident. His father didn't come for him. He floated there alone, no air, no help, until he pulled himself to the surface after more than 2 minutes holding his breath. He made it alone once before. He can do it again. Ava gives him that. She believes him. And that belief, fragile as it is enough. They prepare to go. But before they do, Marty pulls Ava aside. She asks Ava to do something that no grandmother should ever have to ask. Protect Rosa. Get her to the surface. Because Marty knows, quietly and without drama, that she will only slow them down. She's made peace with it. Ava doesn't want to accept it. But she does. Marty holds Rosa one last time. She tells her that Grandpa Hank will watch over her no matter what. That Ava and the teddy bear will be right there beside her. Rosa doesn't fully understand. But she holds on tight. Then they dive. Ava and Rosa go first. Danilo follows. Kyle brings up the rear. Marty watches them disappear beneath the surface. And then she sits down on the floor of the rising cabin, closes her eyes, and whispers to Hank to protect the granddaughter they both love so much. The water rises over her. Halfway to the surface, Kyle panics. The open water, the darkness, the pressure, it's too much. He starts swimming back toward the plane. The sharks find him. It happens fast. Danilo sees it. He doesn't stop. He pushes upward, reaches Ava, and warns her what happened. There's nothing to do but keep going. Then, the plane gives way. The entire structure begins falling into the abyss, and the current it creates drags Ava backward with terrifying force. She kicks. She claws at the water. She exits the hull in the very last second before it disappears into the black depths below. A wing catches the current and nearly takes her with it. Without the vest working properly, she loses consciousness from lack of oxygen just meters from the surface. And then, her face breaks through the water. She gasps back to life. Floating in a wide, quiet ocean, she spots the teddy bear. Right there. Bobbing beside her. She grabs it. Rosa and Danilo are nowhere in sight. Panic sets in until a helicopter swoops overhead and a crew member lowers a cable. And as she's pulled up, she sees it, Rosa and Danilo, already inside the helicopter. Already safe. Already wrapped in emergency blankets and alive. The little girl sees the teddy bear in Ava's hands and runs to her. When Rosa is calm, when the tears have slowed and the shock has settled a little, she holds the teddy bear close. And she remembers something her grandfather said. That if he ever got into serious trouble, he'd want a teddy bear just like this one. She walks to the side of the helicopter. And she gently drops the bear into the ocean below. It floats there, small and soft against the vast dark water. A tribute to everyone they lost. A message to a grandfather who didn't make it home. The survivors sit together, exhausted, shattered, relieved, as the helicopter carries them back toward shore. Alive. Against every odd. Against every shark, every flooded corridor, every impossible moment. They made it. The movie ends. Now let me ask you something. Could you have survived what these people went through? The crash, the water, the sharks, the impossible choices? I genuinely want to know. Drop your answer in the comments below. And while you're down there, tell me which moment hit you the hardest. Was it Rosa dropping the teddy bear at the end? Marty sitting down in the rising water? Or was it Brandon, the man who literally pulled a piece of metal out of his own chest just to give the others a fighting chance? This movie doesn't get talked about nearly enough. And if you watched this entire recap without subscribing yet, honestly, what are you waiting for? Every week we break down films exactly like this one, tense, emotional, edge-of-your-seat storytelling that you can experience in under 30 minutes. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another recap.